And here we are, back again with Miss Dynamo herself, Suzanne Musho. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning. That was really fancy. I feel like you're like moving up in the world here.
Well, I'll tell you the sort of thing that you've been doing over the last couple of weeks because I follow you on Facebook to see what you're up to, and there is one outstanding thing that you are involved in that absolutely thrills me, and that is your relationship with the opera company because
Yeah.
it seems to be never stop. You're always doing something.
Yeah, no, they're putting on this great show called Lava Stale, and it's in honor of the 100th birth, the anniversary of the birthday of Maria Callas 100 years ago. And they're putting on this incredible production. So we're trying to get every seat sold out. So I've been sending it to everyone I know, including friends at Lincoln Center and Juilliard and everything. So hopefully we'll get the house filled. Maybe you can come, Keith.
Well,
Maybe,
why not?
yeah, why
It's
don't you come to the
when is
service?
it?
October 28th.
Well, is the original plan, which all plans get involved badly, of course. But there's no reason why we couldn't get it going again. Was for us to come and do a program or two out of New York in October, and that would be a very very good reason for coming, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Sure would. Yeah. And Stephanos would love to see you.
We may need a little bit of help from you because the way that we're going to partly fund it is to see whether we could get some seats on a blue something airline
Oh,
which flies
JetBlue.
to Gatwick, and they are actually very active in sponsorship. But when I try to approach them, it's obvious that you have to do it from the States.
Oh,
So if I send you the pitch, perhaps what you would do is you would forward it to the appropriate department.
sure. Yeah. It's always worth a try.
Let's do that because it would be a dual thing. We would want to do something on Tom Paine, and we could do. I mean, undoubtedly we could sort of get Grindboard involved somehow with your opera company. My goodness me, what an extravaganza of a program we could have.
Yeah, that's what such a great idea too, to kind of combine our forces, Um,
Absolutely,
the more
absolutely.
brains, the better.
Well, I'll send you some stuff this week, and
Okay.
let's see whether we could actually get it cracking.
Okay.
The fact is that Mirador is really beginning to take off now. After all our hard work, which has included you being faithful and getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, our viewership is increasing. The number of people of substance that we're getting on is enormous, and we're doing things of real worth. And I'm very pleased. So the more we can take that forward, the better. And although he's on holiday at the moment, it looks as if we've got somebody who understands business, which helps.
All right. That sounds wonderful. Oh, here, it looks like somebody's joining you. Someone
Yes,
joining
this
you.
is Rama. Yeah,
Huh.
you met her, I think a couple of weeks ago. Who's going to make sure that our technical stuff stays good? But he's an intelligent young man, and from time to time he sort of pops in a comment.
All right. Well, nice to see you.
Right now, tell us more about your current opera offering.
It's going to be at a really beautiful theater. And let's see if I can give you some more information. I'm just going to check the date again, too, because I'm pretty sure it's October 28th. But it's going to be a really fantastic production. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if it's the 28th. Now I have to check it again. Anyway, but yes, so it's in honor of Maria Callas, which would be just fantastic, and we have these fantastic singers already lined up. And as always, Teatro always does sort of a modern interpretation of all the operas. So you'll see some kind of anachronistic sort of elements to the opera, and it'll be a full orchestra, and Just a fantastic time for the city, and also just for opera in general. I mean, we've been really making some kind of like a nice imprint in opera as a small opera company based in New York, and Opera Wire is actually this is great news, Keith. We've already been picked up by Opera Wire, so they've already been advertising it, which is a pretty big deal in the opera world, from what I understand.
Well, yeah, that's terrific. Now, one of the things about your brand of opera, as it were, it's Stefano, is it not?
Stefanos, yeah, Stefanos.
Stefano, yes, he is the most innovative character. You know, he puts people in glass boxes and that sort of thing. To do an impression of Macbeth. I mean, so what sort of thing has he got in mind for this?
Well, it's a surprise.
So we all have to go not knowing.
Yeah, and we should have him, we have been talking about having him come on the show again, so he should come on the show again and share it. Yeah.
I meant to mention that to you. I mean, if we could get him 4 times a year, because he's like you. He's got great energy, great ideas. He gets around the world, let alone New York, and a breath of fresh air. So, yes, we're very happy anytime he wants and anytime you can get him.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, he's a very cosmopolitan fellow. He was born in Greece and raised in Italy, and now lives in New York and running this opera company. And he's also... he was an opera singer himself as well. I've never heard him sing, but I hope maybe he can do that. I'll actually ask him to sing in the next show.
Oh, what a great idea! Yes.
Even if it's a couple of bars. Do opera singers sing a couple of bars? Hum a few bars? I don't know.
Does he ever appear in his own productions?
No. He's like kind of given up singing, but. Actually, it would be interesting. He does have the need for a few extras that he has on the stage. Maybe you could be one of the extras, Keith.
Well, now that's a thought, isn't it?
Yes. That is very enticing.
It is. I think I told you. This is a complete red herring, but I think I told you that one of my favorite authors is a 1930s columnist for Le Figaro in Paris. Called Pierre Dananot. And Pierre Dananot invented Major Thompson, the Frenchman's idea of an Englishman. And on one occasion, it's Pierre Dananot goes to New York. Now, what we could do is Mirador goes to New York with Mr. Keith.
Yes, no. We can have for the opera, but then we could also do some fun things. I can have you in like these sort of really quintessential New York moments, and be going up to the top of the Empire State Building. And although we have a lot of really fancy tall buildings now, that people tend to go to the other building because other buildings are even taller. But we'll figure it out. We'll come up with like a whole kind of Mr. Keith Goes to New York.
But we mustn't forget Tom Paine. Mustn't forget Tom Paine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Incidentally, it's because we're such a small town. I constantly bump into my colleagues. So yesterday morning, I decided I would go for Sunday lunch at a pub, and I marched into the pub, and who's there? But Richard Barton, one of our barristers. So we sat and we discussed, and I said, "Now listen, Richard, I've put it into your hands to recreate the trial of Tom Paine." So he immediately picked up the reins, and he's now finding out whether we can use the courthouse. But he also, I didn't know, is apparently the basement of the town hall looks like a courthouse. So we've got options. And that would be very interesting, because I don't know whether you know much about Tom Paine, but obviously he's the man who supposedly started the War of Independence. But also he was charged with treason in the United Kingdom, and his former Attorney General of the time, and we're talking about sort of the late 1700s, of course, early 1800s, wrote the defense. And it was considered to be the very first defense using freedom of the press. So a fascinating theme for us. Freedom of the press.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're expressing freedom every day here, right?
We should
On
get
Mirador.
Yes, we should get Stefano to write us a little operetta of
wouldn't that be nice?
Tom Paine and freedom of the press. Wow, that would go down a storm.
I would love it. I would love it. He's actually, I think he shared on this show that he's preparing an opera. He just got the release of the not the playwright, the opera right. I don't know and so he's in the midst of doing that, and that should be ready, I think, in 2025. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, we've got time to sort of get him to involve.
Exactly. We have time. Yeah. We have
time. Now, it wouldn't be our program on a Monday without us finding out what the family Musho have been up to, because you are, let me put it this way, not exactly a typical New York family, but you do lots of things that New York families do, and you do them with gusto and with zest. So tell us what you've been up to.
Well, so my son was at a birthday party out on the Jersey Shore with a bunch of friends, and that looked like a lot of fun. They went surfing and swimming, even though it was sort of raining the entire time, but he had a great time. And then actually this Saturday, we drove out to see my sister. My sister lives in Long Island, in a town called Babylon, which actually has become very famous. I don't know if you read the papers recently about the person who was found out who's suspected of being a serial killer in Long Island.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you about that in a second. But we went to my sister's house in Babylon, which is pretty close to the ocean, and had a really nice day. We swam in the pool and had sushi for lunch. But the drive out to my sister's house took us over 2 hours, and it's like not even 40 miles. And then back just as long. It was like a really tough trip. But yeah, so there's this serial killer who has not been found. I think the killing started in 2010 or so, and 11 people were killed. 9 women who were they call them sex workers, and there was also a gentleman and then also a toddler, and they think that they're all linked. Anyway, they arrested somebody on Friday for all of the murders. Well, not for all of them, for 3 of the 11, and he's suspected for the 4th, and they think they can build a case for the rest of them. But this is the part that you won't believe. Well, there's a few things that you won't believe, but he's an architect.
Oh.
I mean, like, architects have got to be the most boring people.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so, young lady.
But I didn't know him, but he was a practicing architect in New York. I didn't know him at all. Yeah, and how they found him was that I guess they kind of, I don't know, they started figuring it out, and they started doing traces, and he had burner phones, and he was calling victims' families and taunting them. He was running like internet searches for like some of the weirdest internet searches that connected him to the murders. And I mean, just so sad and so crazy. But yeah, I mean, they arrested this guy on Friday.
Wow. While you were there?
Yeah, and what's crazy about it is that all of the murders, they left the bodies in this area called Gilgo Beach, which is right next to Babylon, where my sister lives. So, and it happened, over like a period of just a couple of years. So people were really nervous and scared and everything. So people can't believe that he's finally been potentially found. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any linking to the? I mean, you say that. I mean, let's call a spade a shovel. That most of the women were hookers, but is there any link to the other 2 or 3 murders?
Yeah, so I guess right now they've only charged him with 3 of the 11 murders, but I think that he's considered a suspect for the 4th. And then they're continuing to investigate the link. They're not sure if they're all really him, or if they are part of the serial killer, or if some of them were copycats or something. But I mean, it's just so bizarre. I guess there were TV shows about it. I didn't even know about it. But my sister was saying that it was a really big deal and people were quite scared when it was first happening. But yeah, he was actually, you know what they reported on the news too, was that they got his DNA because he was eating pizza and left his pizza in the pizza box in the New York City garbage can. And that's how they got his DNA, to confirm. I know. It's crazy.
Ah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Am I having false thoughts, or is there either a book or a movie, something like Last Train to Babylon? Babylon is in the title of a movie or a book.
Oh, I don't know. There probably is. I mean, Babylon's obviously a pretty famous place, but well, not Babylon, Long Island, but Babylon. And then there's a song, Babylon. But there's also a movie about this murderer, about this serial killer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you have to look it up, and they finally think that they have found him. So
right. Perhaps I'll look it up, and perhaps we'll get a little clip of it if we can, and show it. Yeah.
So crazy.
That'd be terrific. Yes. Okay. Now, what about the rest of the family? Is this a son who is a basketball player?
He's the basketball player. Yeah. So we're still working on colleges for him. So he's going to be in his senior year of high school this coming fall. So he has 1 more year of high school before he goes to college. And then my 2 daughters are in a theater camp. My oldest daughter is kind of a counselor and kind of director for the theater camp, and my youngest daughter is in the camp, and my youngest daughter has been practicing. I think she has like 3 lines or something, so she's been practicing her lines, which is just adorable. And she doesn't like to project very much, if you can imagine. My daughter doesn't like to project, but she's not a big fan of it, so we've been trying to work with her to get to say her lines a little bit more loudly. And let's see what else is going on. And then my husband did all that driving on Saturday, but he couldn't wait to get out of that car. So funny. But I was in Atlanta last week. Yes, I was in Atlanta. I had never really spent time in Atlanta, so it was a nice visit.
Yes, I always think of Atlanta as being the communications hub of the United States. It's where a lot of the big media companies are.
Yeah, there is just, I mean, Keith, you wouldn't believe this. It was a really big plane, and it was completely full in both directions. I mean, not a seat was empty. And I was like, who is going to Atlanta? It's like great. But it turns out that it really is the headquarters for so many companies. And it's also a hub for Delta Airlines. So there's a lot of people flying to. When I first went to Europe on my own, and I went to Ireland, I flew to Atlanta first on Delta, and then from Atlanta to Ireland. So I remember that. So.
And that's a direct flight from Atlanta to Dublin.
Yeah, from Atlanta to it was Atlanta to Shannon.
Yes. Yeah. Now, if I can just do one of my famous red herrings, because the very first time I flew to North America, which was way back in 1955, we had to fly down to the Azores. You didn't get fed on the plane in those days. You got off the plane and you had breakfast. And then, if you recall, because you still are going to send me some photographs, we flew up to Gander.
Ah, yes.
And you have a little story about Gander because your husband was from Newfoundland, is that right?
Yes, my husband's family is from Newfoundland, but from St. John's, not from Gander. But yes, yeah.
but there is a little a place there that you architecturally are very fond of.
Yeah, no, it's Fogo Island, and Fogo Island, the way that you get to Fogo Island, which is about a 2-hour ferry ride off of the coast of Gander. So you drive to Gander, and then you get on this ferry that's a good 2 hours long, and then you go to an island called Fogo Island, and there is a 5-6 star like resort hotel on Fogo Island, and it's designed by an architect called Todd Sanders. I did send you some photos though, but you want me to should I make like something so that you can use the photos?
Yes, but I didn't even get those photos.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
I did send them this time. I promise, because right when I got off the show, I went and sent them to you. All right, so I will send them again.
Yes, please. I sometimes get so busy that I don't look properly. I'm very sloppy. That's why I've got somebody here who is less sloppy. He's very much
okay. Yes. He's your producer, right? Is that what's going on?
Well, he's starting off small, but who knows? He may end up as the new Sky champion, Rupert Murdoch of the industry.
That's right. Sky's the limit.
Yeah. The other thing about Gander, about Shannon is you used to stop off at Gander, and Gander, of course, was famous because the community looked after all sorts of passengers who were trapped because of 9/11.
Absolutely. I mean, it was just such a crazy story. And they even made a play about it called Come From Away. And basically, hundreds of planes landed in Gander, which used to be, what you just described, that transatlantic flight landing in Gander, that was when Gander's airport is huge. It's made for that kind of traffic that you're talking about. And so they just don't see that many planes as they used to. So these hundreds of planes descend, at 9/11, they force all planes out of the air, and so they landed in Gander, and all of the wonderful Newfoundland people welcomed everybody into their homes and gave them a place to sleep, and it gave them dinner, and it's a really famous story. So,
yeah, indeed, it is fascinating story. Now, where else you went to Atlanta? But you're a renowned traveler. I mean, you don't sit still for a minute. So where else have you been recently, and where do you plan to go in the near future?
Well, I was in Maine, Northeast Harbor, Maine, a couple of weeks ago, and that was beautiful. I mean, I've never been to that part of Maine before, so that was a really great experience. And I was there because I'm working on helping a woman named Mika Brzezinski, who is a journalist and a broadcaster. She's kind of reigniting the legacy of her mother, who was a famous sculptor. And so we have some exhibits that I'm working on, and we're doing the website, and doing some different kind of recommissions of some of the sculpture. So that's why I was in Maine, because that's where we plan to put a gallery as well. So her daughter is going to build a gallery in Maine. So that was a really nice trip. And then I'm going to California with my son. We're organizing that because he's considering going to California for college. So I think like the last weekend of July. And then from about August 8th to August 14th or so, maybe we'll see. We're hoping to do a family vacation, but we haven't picked the place yet. So.
All right. Now, we share a lot of things in our tastes. Maine is one of my favorite places. And I think I told you that it would be about 88 or 89, I spoke at the Governor of Maine's Economic Conference in Portland, in Bangor in Maine. But if you're dealing in sculpture, you remember what the statue is in the middle of Portland?
No.
A lobster fisherman. A big bronze lobster fisherman. Yes.
Well, that stands to reason. Although I didn't. What?
It's magnificent. It's imposing. It's a huge lobster fishery.
I flew to Bangor. I didn't fly to Portland, so I haven't been to Portland yet. But I have to go because they have that beautiful Portland Museum of Art that was designed by Harry Cobb, who was at the firm that I started my career in. And they're now doing an addition onto it, and I have some friends who are going to be working on the project. So it's it's supposed to be very exciting. And then it's funny. There is a museum in Mystic, Connecticut, which obviously it's not all the way to Maine, but it's starting to go on the way to Maine. And they had a beautiful Turner exhibit. Gosh, I think it was like 2 years ago. I think was it before the pandemic, or I think it was before the pandemic. So maybe 2019. So 4 years. It was a beautiful exhibit, and it was so kind of crazy that it went to a smaller museum. But that was sort of the idea, was to try to bring kind of really noteworthy artists to smaller museums around the world. So it was really special. My kids, I could not convince to go with me, so I was alone at the exhibit while they were eating lunch, I think. So, but it was really beautiful.
I would have thought that Turner paintings would go down very well in Maine, because Maine is still very raw, isn't it?
It's just so, yeah.
Yeah, and Turner reflects sort of the England of the 18th, early 19th century, where we still had farms without tractors and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and also all of his paintings are so ethereal. It's kind of like, is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Is it foggy? Is it sunny? And that's exactly how Maine is. It's like, at least the time that I was there. I mean, the fog and the mist was constant.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a lovely, lovely, lovely. Well, it's the oldest state, isn't it, in the Union, Maine?
No, the oldest state is Virginia.
Well,
yeah.
Maine is not far afterwards, because it's where not. a lot of the colonists landed in the first instance. And in fact, there are some sad stories about people starving to death and having to come back to Britain because of the harsh winter, and they were ill prepared. I do have in my bookshelves 2 or 3 books presented to me on the history of Maine, so I'm a little bit familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, the oldest state is actually Delaware. I'm wrong. Yes.
Well, now you know the relationship between Hollywood. Sorry, not Hollywood. Lewis, Delaware, and Lewis here.
No.
Well, the ship that stood off and threatened during the American Civil War. The English captain sent a note to the citizens of Lewis and said, "Please provision my ship, and this is what I want." And they sent back and sort of said, "Bugger off." So he fired on the town. He killed 2 pigs, 1 chicken, and the cannonball is still stuck in the library stairs.
I thought you were going to say it's still stuck in the chicken. I'm like, that's some chicken.
Well, that would have been church, wouldn't it? Some chicken, some neck. Suzanne, talking to you is always a delight. We've gone 5 minutes over our allotted time, which doesn't matter one little bit, but it's always just such a great pleasure. But we've got 2 or 3 projects now which we must follow through on, and particularly with Stefano. If I can put it this way, apart from all his talents, like you, he is very good television. So having him on is always a great pleasure.
Absolutely. I am going to talk to him this week. We actually have a meeting Wednesday, so I'll tell him that he has to come next time. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And we need to keep pushing, because I am just fascinated by his opera company, your opera company, in fact. I mean, you sit on the board now, don't you?
I do. Isn't that funny? Yes, I do. And I'm very proud of it. Everybody works really hard, particularly Stephanos. On his birthday, he wrote 2 grants. I was like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
That's terrific. Suzanne, lovely to talk to you.
Ciao. Thank you.
Have you been in touch with Dr. Maybe?
So we have been emailing, but we haven't found a time to talk. So I am going to make sure that we get a date to talk, and I set up a Zoom to talk to him. So
That's good. I haven't spoken to Mark, but your deadline is to launch your show in the early part of September.
okay, all right. I'll tell him. I'll tell him we have a deadline. Okay,
that's great. Okay.
All right, ciao. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Well, there we are. Well, another full morning, and what we have gone over a little bit, but we will say toodle pip, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30, not 8 o'clock as we were this morning. But once those barristers get cracking, they are early birds. I mean, I think that they're so used to throwing people into the jug early in the morning. That's why they get themselves out of bed. Right. So, is on behalf of our say toodle pip. Well done, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you.